his son is fantastic. I mean, he's fantastic. Wahoo Jr. is a great human being. I really stepped in shit. That's a New York saying for wow. Is this really going on? But yeah, I'm very happy, man. But I miss.
That's awesome, though. Congrats.
I thank you, thank you. But it snowed. And it hasn't snowed in 36 years. And of course, Mike, I didn't just bring my usual New York jet luck that we suffer through. I brought snow, and I could smell it. I try to tell everybody it's coming. There's no snow shovel plows. There's no salt out here. There's no nothing. I did bring my ice scraper from New York. That saved my ass getting off my shift. You know?
Last week it snowed here, and I moved to Nashville 5 years ago. It
Right.
snowed here, and my stepdaughter, she just started driving like a couple months ago, and we were like, oh fuck, we don't have a snow scraper. So my fiance was out there with a spatula, a rubber spatula, scraping the windshield.
Nice.
Yeah. Run the
by the way, guys, when
Yeah.
you're shoveling, do you end up getting bat wings from the
What?
sweat?
Are you back
from
to the bat?
shoveling?
You're back to the bat wings again?
I'm back to the bat wings. Chubby,
what-
when you do a lot of sweating when you're shoveling?
I do. I'm sweating right now. I'm sitting here.
Well, let me help you
He's
with
got
that.
bat wings. He's
Our
got bat
new
wings right now.
Our new sponsor, Mando.
There you go.
They'll get rid of those bat wings for you, Chubby. All right. You just spray it in between your sack, get it off your legs, right?
Your
It
sack.
comes right off.
Sack release spray.
Sack release spray. And the scent is wonderful.
Oh my
And
god.
if you use the code MATP, you'll get 5% off.
Nice. This
See,
is real
there's
too.
This
Very
is real.
real.
A lot of things that
Very
go on
real.
here.
Very
And guess
real.
what? If you're hanging out with the old lady, whoops,
Here we
and of course, in typical Monty form,
Did you-
yet again,
Just
I
like the
dropped
just like the
like
commercial.
you use this and you smell really good, man. You put it all over yourself. Possibly,
Yeah.
maybe get it licked off. Who knows? But you know what?
Hey,
Mando, MATP.
Mando.
There you go, buddy.
Wow.
Anyway,
Yo, Jimmy, how are you, buddy?
Let you speak on this. What's up, brother?
Just another day in the neighborhood, man. What'd you
Yep.
think of the interview with Rob Van? Can I get my camera here? I'm a little slow on this
Yeah.
camera. All of a sudden, Rob Van Dam.
Yeah. You look good though. You don't look homeless, I'll tell you that. RVD? Come on, man. I nerded out. I suck. No, I had a great time. I thought he was great. I've always thought that he's honest. I always thought that he's very real. I believe in basically he's centered. I've only really known like a very few people that I consider centered, Mike. I don't know if you've ever come across one, but I have, and they're rare. He as a person is very centered.
Yeah, but it was an angry RVD though.
It was. No, I'm not gonna obviously, but it was an honest RVD. Anger is part of the Bible. I was like confused at our previous from what is it? The what crime family, Mike?
The Hines crime family.
Yeah. I was surprised that I was hearing the father use Bible reference, like, that's in the Bible. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? That's not in the Bible. What's going on here? My background with it. I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. What on earth is this loony talking about? But I thought Rob was great. And obviously I'm a huge fan of him, not just for his in-ring career, as a person. The last thing you and I are marks, because if we don't like something about a certain wrestler and we think that they're not being, to be honest, centered about the whole thing, whatever the thing may be, if you're following me, then we say what we want. You know, we don't go, oh, it's so and so, and he wrestled in where and blah, 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 blah. I don't give a fuck. You know, if you start with us for no reason, then okay, fine. You know, what am I going to do? I'm going to return fire. What are you going to do? Return fire. The end. You know, not to go on that rant.
Well,
Sorry.
speaking of that,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
before we get to our esteemed guest,
Yeah, you didn't tell me, by the way, how thin I look today and how fit I look.
what do you mean?
You know, I did. What was that? I saw that. You know, like we both looked like the, you know, the beginnings of like a real, like, you know, overweight problem. I don't. That's not what we look like. Imitation is the best form of flattery.
You are losing me right now. What are you trying to say? Okay.
I'm referring to Burn the House Down, Disco Inferno, and what is it, Glenn Gilberti or whatever you call him.
Hey, look, dude, that's what I need from you, right?
Conan.
I can't. I'm not a good beat around the bush guy. You know what I mean? I just can't.
Oh, that's why
I
I'm
don't
bringing
catch
it up.
on. Yeah. So let's just get into it before we get Joel on.
Well,
Okay.
you started it.
So it seems like we triggered our friend, or your friend and my friend, Gilberti,
please. Here we go again.
and Conan, and they look like they were offended about a few things. What were your thoughts on that video?
My thoughts were is now they've started talking more about us than them, and if we're marks, we basically just kissing their ass. So I'm not sure what you think a mark is. Talk about low hanging fruit, Mike. Let's be honest, Mark. Oh, what is that?
Dude, I'm not, and I'm going to ask Joel.
You know, like,
about that too.
Mark. A mark doesn't talk the way we talk.
First of all, I don't even understand Mark.
I know. It's
just
just
like
broad. It's low hanging.
It is just it.
That's easy to say. You know, I actually told you in advance that Conan would have this sort of reaction. I'm not surprised. I don't care any more than he does. I'm like, whatever, suck it, whatever, suck me, suck this. You know, who cares?
You're becoming too nice. You're becoming too nice.
I don't think so. I basically
ever since you married into a prestigious wrestling family, you have taken the high road on many different occasions.
Well, the prestigious wrestling family that I live in that you referred to, if you know anything about Wahoo McDaniel, you know that Wahoo was true to his word. He stood up for not just himself, he stood up for the boys. That's why I pointed it out during the RVD interview. RVD is similar in some ways. Sure, in the ring they were different. I would compare Wahoo to today's wrestler more like a Samoa Joe. You know, like he beat you down. He's a big man. He was a legit athlete. He beat the shit out of you. You know, and he was respected. And he was respected by the boys, and he took care of the boys when he promoted. He was an honest man. And that's how I feel about Rob Van Dam. And, you know, it's funny. I did feel funny when he was like, I do feel he was set up with that video, you know, because, you know, it made us, it put a very broad paintbrush back to the paintbrush. And we were just asking questions because that's what we do with our guests. And I'm very excited about our guest tonight.
Well, speaking of our guests, Mr. Joel Goodhart, thank you for joining us.
No problem. How are you?
Yes.
Joel,
good.
Let me tell you something. Number one, it's an honor to have someone of your lineage. Is lineage the right word there, Jimmy, for professional wrestling?
Yeah, because there's a point of origin to everything important that we see on screen today. So, yeah, go on.
And us just being fans, and again, we'll never say anything more than that. It's always amazing about guys like yourself who have meant so much for the industry. Not saying you're not in the forefront, but you're sure. When mainstream wrestling, it's like Joel Goodhart is known from a lot of the insiders and an iconic figure, but maybe to the casual fan, Joel may not be such a household name. Would that be a fair description?
That's absolutely fair. It's the way I wanted it.
Well, can you elaborate on that?
Wow. Yeah, you know, to me, the promoter is behind the scenes. The promoter is out front at certain areas. When I used to do my shows, I did some of the ring announcing. I was on the radio, so people knew who I was. But the reality is that it's the boys, it's the workers, it's the boys and the girls in the ring that make the show. And I always wanted to be behind the scenes more than in front. Even now with this big show that I'm doing on May 3rd, we're promoting everybody on the show, including the referees, and including the ring announcer. But we're not promoting Joel Goodhart. And it was something I always rather be below the line instead of above the line.
So, Joel, for someone who may not know you as well as others,
Yep.
How did you become a professional wrestling fan, and then how did you become such a polarizing figure in the industry?
Well, for one thing, I was always a fan and still a fan. I grew up, my father took me to the matches at the Market Street Arena here down in Philadelphia, and I saw Bruno Sammartino, and I saw Spiros Arion, who was my guy. I was always I liked the heels, and Spiros Arion was the guy I always liked to watch. But I grew up in the matches. Anyway, long story short, I'm in the financial services business. I've been doing it now for April 1st. It'll be 49 years. And I get a phone call from one of the accountants I was working with way back when. And Bruce happens to say to me, I have a client I want you to go see. They want to talk to you about some insurances, etc. So I go out to see Carmella and Paul Panfil. And anyway, long story short, Carmella and Paul and myself hit it off. We're the ones that started the Squared Circle, the wrestling store that was the wrestling store before other wrestling stores were around. We started Wrestling Radio. We started, I mean, we didn't realize it at the time, but we were breaking history. Anyway, Paul says to me after one of my appointments, he says to me, by the way, if you ever need tickets for anything, Broadway show, concerts, whatever, I have contacts to go get good seats. So I said, okay, I'll keep that in mind. If I ever need a ticket, I'll give you a call. A couple of weeks later, he calls me up and he says, what are you doing Saturday night? And I said, nothing. I was separated at the time. I said, nothing specific. He says, you want to go to the wrestling matches? I said, sure. Well, this is when the NWA was coming to Philadelphia. And I went with Paul to the matches. And sure enough, he got front row seats. I don't know how he pulls it off, but he gets front row seats. And we watched the matches, and we watched the Road Warriors. We watched the Rock and Roll Express. We watched Ric Flair, Magnum TA. I mean, I can go down the names. And I go back about 2 or 3 months in a row with Paul in the front row. And one time I'm sitting on the front row, and there's a guy walking around the ring in a suit and tie. And if you're a wrestling fan, you realize anybody wearing a suit and tie doesn't fit. So I happened to go up to the guy, and I said, look, you look like you're important. Who are you? And he says, my name is Elliot Murnick. I said, okay, and who are you? He says, well, I'm the promoter. I'm Crockett's right hand. I'm the eyes and ears for Crockett here in Philadelphia. So I said, okay. And he says, well, do me a favor. You doing anything later after the show? I said, no. He says, well, why don't you come back to the Marriott? Now, I was one of those guys, I had no clue about the Marriott in Philadelphia. I didn't know what the hell he's talking about. I go there, there's 300 people. They're all wrestling fans. There's 300 people there. They're waiting for all the wrestlers to come back from the matches. Anyway, I meet Elliot Murnick for a drink, and I don't drink, but I have a Diet Coke, and he has his whatever he was drinking. And we sit and talk, and we struck up a friendship. 2 or 3 months of this going on, he then says to me, I have a question for you. Do you ever think about getting into promoting? And I said to him, well, Carmella and I had promoted a couple of shows with Dominic DeNucci. It's not something that really took off for us. But he said, well, I need a set of eyes and ears in Philadelphia for me, meaning for him. Well, he lived in North Carolina, and he would drive his boat up the Atlantic Ocean to Philadelphia. He'd never take a plane, never took a car. So he needed somebody more local. And that's how I got into the promotion end of it. I started working with the NWA. I started doing ring announcing for them in Philadelphia instead of Gary Michael Capetta. I did the matches. I got to know the guys in the back. I started to do the Squared Circle. We started having lunches. We started having lunches when Carmella was involved. Carmella and Paul decided to get out of the business. Smart move that they made. And I decided to continue with it, started having lunches, had the guys come in, got to know them all. And one thing led to the other. And now the story about how I got into promoting and creating the TWA, it's a whole nother show into itself. But that's how I got involved in the business.
Amazing.
Where
Go ahead, Jimmy.
where does we all go back in, especially in my philosophy in life, we all go back to the point of origin. Where does the idea to be the company that becomes the beginnings of what we eventually knew as my personal favorite, I'm on record Ford company, ECW, where does the ideology of that come in? Who comes up with that? Our presentation is going to be more brutal than you've seen in the past, because without what you did, I don't think that eventually there's an ECW. I do believe in a point of origin, and that's where it was occurring. So where does that start?
Well, you're looking at it. It's right in my head. In fact, I'm. You can actually quote me on this. Todd Gordon wrote the book Todd is God. Well,
Right.
If I created Todd and Todd is God, what's that make me? Okay.
I suppose there's no one knows as Moses.
Okay. Well, the long story short is when I created the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance, which again just grew and grew and grew. But once I created the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance, Bill Apter, one of the magazine guys, Bill Apter gave me all the credibility I needed. The day I announced the TWA, the formation of the TWA in the ring, and I brought out the new TWA heavyweight belt. As I'm walking out of the ring, Bill Apter comes up to me and says, PWI is going to recognize the TWA. And every month thereafter, the TWA was in the magazine, the top 10. We had our rankings. We created, in my mind, I was always and still am always a fan. I did matches that I wanted to see as a fan. Didn't sell me a single ticket. I mean, I had one match, Adrian Street against Jimmy Valiant. I always wanted to see Adrian Street live. I used to trade tapes. I used to watch him on the tapes, watched him in Georgia. The Georgia feud that he had with Jimmy Valiant was unbelievable. And the one thing I learned about Adrian Street is he never came north of the Mason-Dixon line. And I had to bribe him. And I won't get into details as to how I did it, but I got him to do a show for me. And that match was the third match on the card. It didn't sell me a single ticket, but as a fan, I wanted to see Adrian Street, and I did. I wanted to see the original Sheik go up against Abdullah the Butcher. I brought that. I wanted to see Terry Funk against Jerry Lawler, the AWA belt versus the NWA belt. I brought that into Philadelphia. And I brought the big names in, and that's what got the magazines involved, because rather than the magazines having to travel to Texas and Pacific Northwest and Florida and Memphis, they could just come down to Philadelphia. All right. So I got the big names, but the real key to the TWA isn't the big names that I brought in. It was the development of the local talent, and the Larry Winners and the DC Drakes and the Johnny Hotbodies and the Tony Stetsons and the Jimmy Genettis and the Glenn Osbornes and the Sandmans and the JT Smiths. I created it all. Okay. And it just, to me, those matches were the best matches on the show. They didn't necessarily sell the tickets that the big names sold, but those matches were without question. You watch them today on YouTube. Those matches were unbelievable. They were as violent as they could get. We had people being thrown off of balconies before New Jack ever did it. We had people thrown out of sports bar. We had tables and chairs. It was unbelievable. I used to have a saying that if you came to a TWA show, everybody at our show had a front row seat at some point during the show.
Wow.
Okay, that was my philosophy. Now, today with insurance restrictions, we're somewhat limited about what we can do. But the reality is that the Attitude Era started right up here. Okay, and I didn't realize it at the time. When I folded and Todd Gordon picked it up and ran with it, and he obviously took ECW way further than I ever would have taken TWA, it was all created. But Todd Gordon was an advertiser on my radio show. And so because he was an advertiser, I had him sit ringside. He was a member from the Variety Club. We used to do our shows for the Variety Club. So he would do some ring announcing, which quite frankly, he was awful at, but he was the ring announcer. Okay. And when I folded, he picked the ball up and ran with it.
Joel, let me ask you a question. First of all, Jimmy and I both. Jimmy, great way to start the interview off. It's fantastic what Joel's talking about. But we've had Todd on a few times, and both of us are really big fans of Todd. I'm not sure if you're a fan of Todd.
Oh yeah, very much.
But I will ask you this: the one thing that we always bring up is that we obviously know what Paul Heyman has eventually become, and he's become this iconic figure in pro wrestling. And we always felt like Todd kind of got shafted. But as we learn about you, like Jimmy had said, you're like the spark. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you got shafted too in the end? When you look at this, do you go,
"Thank you,
wow, I could have been a Paul Heyman"? How does that feel?
What makes you stop that? It's you had the mind, you invented something that obviously others ran the ball with and made money off of.
Yeah.
Do you feel you were ahead of your time as well?
First of all, they didn't make money doing it. They lost money. They lost more money than I lost. And I always talk about wrestling. Think about this one. Ted Turner bought WCW and lost money and sold it.
Right.
Okay.
At the end of the day, correct.
You can't make money in wrestling unless you're the WWE, and that's not wrestling. All right. And I see the WWE banner behind you. That's not wrestling. They even tell you they're sports entertainment. They're not professional wrestling. Okay. And I'm one of those old marks. I'm old school. WWE, WWF, it's not wrestling. They think they are. And some of them do some phenomenal wrestling moves. No question about it.
Okay. That's at least you said that much. We're WWE.
Oh, yeah.
We were raised on, just as, a disclaimer, we were raised on the East Coast.
Sure.
So we grew up with Vince's product, and I did notice one of your matches, and I have to mention it because this is a dream match to me personally, growing up on this coast. And look, Vince McMahon means something different to everybody. Sure. I understand your point of view. Sure. I see Larry Zbyszko versus David Sammartino. Was that something you wanted to see? Because my God, I wanted to see that. How'd that go? How did that come together?
Yeah, now keep in mind, I'm right outside Philadelphia, so I'm on the East Coast just like you guys were. When I started the shows before it was TWA, at that point it was just independent wrestling. I happened to have known Bruno Sammartino through Carmella, because Bruno actually happened to have been our grand opening at our store. So I got to know Bruno. And anyway, one thing led to the other, and I said to myself, boy, I would love to get Bruno Sammartino and Larry Zbyszko in a ring. Okay, now I got close. Didn't happen because what I had is I had Larry Zbyszko against David Sammartino. I had David Sammartino being managed by Bruno and Larry Zbyszko being managed by Paulie Dangerously.
Okay.
Nice. And I tried to get the two of them in the ring just to create some heat. And they didn't want to do it. Okay, they didn't want to do it because they really, even though those guys professionally liked each other, they did not like each other. They didn't even want to be in the same building with each other. Okay, and when I tried to coordinate to get them in the ring just to create some heat, couldn't do it. And David Sammartino, now I haven't talked to Dave in 35 years. David Sammartino at that time was cut. He came into the ring against Larry Zbyszko, and they had a great little match. And Paulie did his stuff. And look, Paulie Dangerously, with all the greatness he's become, started with me. Okay? And look, and then, of course, he did Memphis, and it wasn't just me. But I'll tell you, in hindsight, had I known what I was doing back then here I am. Think about this one. 35 years later, I'm on Monte The Pharaoh.
Right.
Okay. Talking about the matches that I did 35 years ago.
Correct.
All right. So I realize now, in fact, I'm in the process of writing a book. If everything goes right, the book is going to be out on May 3rd at our show. Will be the initial print of the book. It talks about my favorite matches. It talks about a lot of what I did with the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance. Think about this one. Here we are 35 years later. I have 44 names of people who worked for me who have since passed away. Okay. And the history is ridiculous. And look, I could write a book on almost every match. And the reality here is that the TWA, didn't realize it at the time, started the ball rolling. The name of my book is We Wrestled, We Brawled, We Started It All. Okay? And we did start it all. Now, others took it to it better, and they made more money, lost more money. But you want to know something? I was the spark. I disappeared in 1992. I disappeared for 17 years. Nobody knew where I was. Nobody could find me. I went below. That was it. Went back to work, went back to raising the family, and I stayed out of wrestling. But that was my call.
What made you want to get out? I need to understand that as a person, because you did start something that eventually you see others succeed at. Why were you so, to me, it feels like you were like indifferent. Is the business that disgusting? What made you walk away from it, to walk away from it for 17 years? Because that's a long time before you realize, wait a minute, I started something and others have taken it, like you said, to another level, and they're getting paid to this day, some of them,
Yeah.
a fortune, a spark that you did start.
Yep.
What makes you so passive to walk away for 17 years?
I had to do it that way. If you know anything about wrestling, once it's in your blood, it's in your blood, and you either turn your back and walk away from it, or it's going to kill you. It's going to bury you. All right. I looked at me in hindsight. I love the fact that Cactus Jack became a millionaire. Okay. And even though he didn't start with me, I think I got him to the degree where he was able to get contracts and build up what he built up. Right. I worked with some of the greats. I worked with Abdullah the Butcher. I worked with the original Sheik. I worked with Jerry Law. I worked with Terry Funk. I worked with Kevin Sullivan. I worked with Eddie Gilbert. I mean, I can go down the list. A lot of people made a lot of money because of me. Okay. I lost a lot of money because of them. And I got out of the business. I was out $168,000 when that was real money. Right. Okay, this was back in in the 80s and 90s. Okay, I got out of the business January 18th of 1992. Yeah. And I was out $168,000, and I had to go back. My daughter was being born, as it turned out, on February 5th, 3 weeks after I got out of the business. And I knew that it was time. I had to go back and do what I had to do for the family. So I walked away from the business. Now, to this day, I know people don't believe me when I say this. To this day, I have never watched an ECW show, period. I've seen clips. I've been on YouTube and seen a match here or there, but I've never watched a 1-hour ECW show. I've never watched a pay-per-view to this day.
Anger or indifference?
No, it's certainly not anger.
Okay.
And I don't know if it was indifference. It was either the business was going to bury me, or I had to move on, and it was just time to move on.
Joel, the thing I got to understand though is, where did you get your money from to pay for all these wrestlers, to pay for the venues? Like, what was your business strategy, or were you just independently wealthy?
No, well, I wasn't independently wealthy, but I was a financial advisor, and I did what I told my clients to do. I saved the money. Now, what I actually did for a period of 2 years, I got out of the business and tried to do wrestling on a full-time basis. Okay, and I did. Unfortunately, you need money to live. Okay, and if you remember any of my shows were expensive. I used to have 10 to 12 people fly in. I used to have 6 to 10 hotel rooms for every show. Okay, I used to have $35,000 gates and make $1,500.
Oh.
Okay, then I had a radio show, Wrestling Radio, which was costing me $750 a week.
Mm.
So I had to generate close to $3,000 a year, just $3,000 a month, just to have the radio show.
Right.
which was helping me build. The bottom line is here. Let's cut to the chase. I was a lousy businessman. I was a fan. Okay. And I was able to pay the guys because I had the money. Didn't mean I made money from it. I had shows, literally $35,000 gates, and I was lucky to make $1,500. Okay. So in hindsight, if I had to do it all over again, Dennis Caroluzzo, who was a competitor of mine, but we were friendly. Right. He was a competitor. He worked with Larry Sharp in the Monster Factory. He used to do the little shows in high school gyms in South Jersey. He drew 200 people, 150 people, and he made money. Okay? He made money. I did these big monster shows, and I lost money. Okay? And to me, I wanted to develop the young talent. We had Ringmasters Wrestling School, which is where Sandman started and JT Smith started, and can go down that list. And between Ringmasters Wrestling School, the Squared Circle Fan Club, the Squared Circle Wrestling Store, Wrestling Radio, come on. I used to drive a Cadillac, and everybody knew that I was a horseman guy. So my license plate was in Pennsylvania 4HRSMN. And I used to drive everywhere in Philadelphia, and they all knew who I was. And they would blow the horns, and they'd give me cheers. And some people gave me the finger. Other people cheered me on. Okay. And I was a four horseman guy, and I always liked the bad guys. And in Philadelphia, the reason Hulk Hogan and the WWF did well is you always had a babyface at the top. Okay, if you remember, they had Bob Backlund, and they gave the strap to Iron Sheik so they can give it to Hogan.
Bob Backlund tortured us in our junior high school days, but I digress. Go on. Okay,
well, bottom line is you always, at least in the NWA, you had Flair at the top, and he would lose it, but then get it back. He always had it. Right. So they were basically built around the heels, whereas the WWF was built around the baby faces.
Understood. Understood. Mike, does that make us strange, though? Because we were raised to love the heels, but when Hogan came around, we fell in love with Hogan. So what does that make us, Mike? Confused? I don't know.
I think it makes you just be a fan of a certain type of wrestler,
if it works for you, it works for you. It can be in all different forms.
I'll cut to the chase. If you watch Hulk Hogan in Japan, the man can wrestle.
Yes, sir.
You watch him here in New York and in Philadelphia, he never wrestled shit.
Right. Okay? It was the basic presentation. I understand.
That's exactly right.
I'm speaking for myself. I it's even like when I listen to today's fans, they get upset because there's too much mic work going on. To me, the mic work is the most important thing that you got out there, right? That's what draws you into sells you to the show.
Well, in the old days,
that's my opinion, anyway.
In the old days, the promos were shorter and to the point, but they were so effective. If it was a Ric Flair talking, if it was a Hulk Hogan talking, the promos were much shorter than what we see today. Today, you're right, Mike. The first half of a Raw or SmackDown can be a half an hour of talking before we get to the matches. But I do agree with you. How do you feel, Mr. Goodhart, about Mike's skills? Because you've got to have them. You've got to sell the show.
Mike's skills are great, except the Mike's skills are the reason for the show.
Right.
Whereas with the WWF, it's the show. You watch WWF on TV, and you've got grand entrances beyond belief.
Mm-hmm.
Then they do 6-minute matches. Right. Okay. And then they do the crap in the back. It's just, and it's scripted. The damn think about all wrestling is scripted. We don't have to pull any punches here.
Not anymore.
When you watch the old NWA, when you used to have the Rock and Roll Express against the Midnight Express, those guys beat the living hell out of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now one of the things that I tried to do with my matches is I told the guys in the back, you do it. When people leave my show, they got to believe that this stuff was real. So I'll give you an example. I had 3 shows, a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. My main event was Wahoo McDaniel against Manny Fernandez.
Wow.
They beat the living shit out of each other.
So I've been told.
I've talked to Manny. In fact, Manny Fernandez is going to be at my show on May 3rd.
Okay.
I've talked to Manny, and he remembers those matches. What he told me was he did those matches with Wahoo for 2 years. And I'm telling you, I know the business. And they beat the shit out of each other. And the next morning they got together for breakfast. Okay? And when people watch those guys in the ring, okay, you can say it's predetermined. You can say whatever you want to say. I'm telling you, to this day, I hear those smacks. The chops, those guys, their chests were as red as could be.
And on top of it, they were the ultimate storytellers.
Oh, every match.
When you bring up Terry Funk, I think of Wahoo and Mike. I'm going to say it this week. I am currently married, fortunately enough, to Wahoo McDaniel's widow, Karen McDaniel. That's why I'm down here in Florida.
Okay.
And right now, Mike, it's a strange moment, but sitting across from me, who came in, is Wahoo's son, Zach. So he's over there chilling out, just watching the show and just nodding his head because at the core of it, Mike, we've been watching wrestling for almost a half a century. Let's face it. Okay. We remember those magazine days. We remember the after importance. We remember the rankings. We used to look at the rankings. We were tortured by Bob Backlund. He's right. It's more a face company usually. Yeah. Joel, I know you haven't watched the product in a long time, but fortunately enough for Mike and I, Roman Reigns was a bad guy, and a recent storyline went on for 4 years, and he was a heel, and we loved every second of it. So at least there was a turnaround for the folks who rooted for Morocco or Valentine. Tough guys, true tough guys.
Jimmy, I wanted to bring it back to you. You got Manny Fernandez on, Joel. Right. We've had Manny in studio twice. Love the guy. Really good guy.
Great person. Great human being.
Here's one thing I wanted to ask you about. It's a little controversial. Manny Fernandez was a Vietnam vet, and he claims to be a Vietnam vet, and he certainly showed or PSTD, at least to us anyway. But many wrestling fans claim that Manny Fernandez is a liar and he wasn't in Vietnam. What are your thoughts about that?
Bogus.
Manny knows the truth. Okay. The business is all a work. This whole business is a work.
Right.
It could be a work for all I know. If it's a work, he's done it for 50 years. Okay. So unless he shows me his medals and his discharge papers, etc., I don't know.
He sounds like us, Mike.
I'm serious.
I agree with him. I mean, what
look, like, Joel, we've been doing this, I think, like 5 or 6 years, and we've been around a lot of wrestlers, and some are very good guys. But the one thing is, me and Jimmy always speak about, is they're always trying to work you, one way or another.
The whole business is a work.
Well, let me ask you this. One of the big problems Jimmy and I have always had is the older wrestling. When you look at wrestling in the 80s, guys like yourself and some other, like, I'll throw some names out, like a John Arezzi, some of these older guys that were around the business at that time. Yeah. They seem to be upset that the game has changed, and guys like Jimmy and I have such a large following, and other people have such a large following. They feel like they lost their dirty little secret. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I totally agree. Now, I'll tell you what. The internet killed wrestling. Streaming killed wrestling. The podcast killed wrestling. And there's no secrets anymore. It used to be, when you go to the movies, and you sit there for 2 hours and you watch a movie, nothing in that movie is real. And nobody cares. They get lost in the movie. Now you go to these matches, and within 30 seconds, everybody's got their phones out, broadcasting it to the entire world. And the reality is that, yes, everybody knows that wrestling is a work. But you want to know something? You can go to a match and still say to yourself, wait a second, this doesn't look. No. Well, that's when people came to the TWA, which is 35 years ago. Everybody left there at some point in the show saying, holy shit, this was real stuff. When Eddie Gilbert and Cactus Jack wrestled, and that program is known even to this day, those guys, when they wrestled in my building, you watched it, and you still, to this day, people still think that those matches were real. And you want to know something? They were real. And that's what makes it so beautiful. Now, they knew what was going on. They knew how to do the business. And when Doug Gilbert used to run in to help Eddie Gilbert out, and Cactus Jack would have, Bam Bam Bigelow would run in to help. This thing, we figured this all out to begin with. I used to have battle royals after a match. Okay, the one thing I learned about wrestling is the match is not necessarily the most important thing. Think about this one, you New York guys. If you remember Madison Square Garden, Jimmy Superfly Snuka jumping off the top of the cage.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, onto Morocco.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, here's the kicker. That was after the match was over.
Right.
That wasn't even part of the match.
Right.
Right? You need to have the stuff work before, during, and after.
Right.
Okay? And we used to have matches, the bell would ring, and it would still go another 15 minutes. Okay? That's the beauty of what we used to do. Today, it's too clean. It's not the same. It's just not the same. And part of it is, I spoke to John Arezzi about a month or so ago. He's basically out of the business too. But when John Arezzi was around and I was around and we were on the outside, but we were helping we helped expose the business to the fans, but we didn't expose the business. Okay? We got the fans closer to the wrestlers. That's something that we were able to do. He had his conventions. I had my luncheons. I had the radio show. I had Paulie Dangerously come in and do a radio show with me. I had Jerry Lawler calling all the time. I had Eddie Gilbert come in. I had Kevin Sullivan in the studio. But they didn't talk about exposing the business. All right? And so the long-winded answer to your short question, the business is so overexposed because of the internet that there are no secrets anymore. And the soap opera is gone. The stories are gone. It's tougher to do it.
Joel, I could hear the passion in your voice, right? I definitely could hear it. And I'm going to assume this, that at some point in your illustrious career in pro wrestling that you kind of got sucked in a little bit.
Sure.
Did you get sucked into the world of drugs with these wrestlers and everything that got in? How did you stay away from it?
I stayed away from it completely for a couple things. Number one, that was just not my cup of tea. Okay. And I was the guy, people will remember this. I used to go back to the Marriott after the show and I would be there for an hour or two and then I'd leave. The rest, everybody else was there partying until 6 a.m. I just didn't want to get involved in that end of the business. And in hindsight, it worked for me. I was able to keep clean. Look, when ECW took off, Jesus Christ, that was a drug and a half. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Okay? It was just not for me. And again, I was so involved in the business end of it that at the end of the night, I had to go home and count how much money I lost or made. Okay? So, no, it was something that was more after the fact. Even the wrestlers, my guys, the local guys, they didn't do drugs. They didn't do it. Okay. Now, I don't know if that's because that was the culture we created or that I created, but it was just not our scene.
Were you ever experiencing any pushback in those days because you were doing something different and you were doing something way more physical? Were you catching any shit for it from any other promoters or any other wrestlers, like you're taking it too far? Did you ever experience any of that stuff going on?
No, I'll tell you what actually happened. For the most part, that everybody saw me as a payday. All right. Back then, there were a lot of independent wrestling. Okay. Today, in New Jersey, there's 10 shows a night. I mean, every Saturday night within 10 miles of each other is 10 shows. It's ridiculous. Okay. And they all try to use their own local talent. And some of those shows are phenomenal. These guys just don't get the break that they need to get. But when I started to do my shows, and it was this sounds crazy. The original Sheik called me to be on one of my cards. Okay. I got phone calls from everybody. Now, we're doing this show on May 3rd, the One and Done show, and it's my last show. I finally decided that, Flair had his last match, and Sting had his last match, and ELO just got done doing their final tour. It's time for me to have my last show.
ELO.
All right. So I'm doing a show on May 3rd down here in Philly called One and Done.
Nice.
It's the last TWA show. It's my last show of One and Done. In the afternoon, we're doing something called a WrestleCon. We're having a big convention. We've got about 50 wrestlers that are going to be there, including Ric Flair. Okay, I've got Ric Flair. I got the Rock and Roll Express. I got Manny Fernandez. I can go down the whole list. We're going to have a great time. We're going to have 3.5 hours of autographs and pictures and what have you. So from 12 to 3:30, we're going to have the con. Then there'll be a break for dinner, and then the doors open at 6. Show starts at 7:30. We've got all kinds of stuff going on this show. It's unbelievable. I don't know how much time we have to talk about it, but I'm welcoming everybody from Long Island. It's only a 2-hour ride. Come on down. It's going to be at the 2300 Arena, the ECW Arena, with the old name. It's at the 2300 Arena. We're going to have matches that are beyond belief.
Have they fixed the air conditioning?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, believe it or not, that building is really cleaned up.
Couldn't breathe back in the day.
So Joel, Chubby was saying that you have this wicked ass 3-woman match.
Oh,
one being Tessa Blanchard is there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
any concerns on your part about Tessa Blanchard being on this card?
No. Now I'll go on. First of all, the triple threat is now going back to a regular match. Miranda Gordy cannot make it. So the match is going to be Tessa Blanchard against Samantha Starr. Okay, who happens to be Baby Doll's daughter.
Correct.
And
big fan of Baby Doll, big fan.
Baby Doll is going to be at the con as well. The one thing that I try to do in all my matches in the show is there's got to be a tie into the TWA in some way, shape, or form. Well, Tessa is Tully Blanchard's daughter, and Tully worked for me. And Samantha Starr is Baby Doll's daughter, who worked for me. Tessa, she's got to overcome some stuff. Tessa Blanchard, I'm going to actually say this. I'll say this publicly. Of all the wrestlers on my show, Tessa Blanchard's the best wrestler on the card.
Agree.
Okay, she's phenomenal. Now, she's got to overcome her stuff. She's going to be flying in from California to do my show. That she's going to be there to meet the fans, and if the fans want to give her heat, give her heat. Okay? The reality is Tessa is a phenomenal wrestler, and it's like saying that Flair was not a good wrestler because he was a bad guy. Okay? I mean, Tessa is what Tessa is. She'll have to overcome it. She's got to address it. She's doing it in the TNA. Okay, she's trying to correct it there. This girl is a phenomenal talent who deserves better than what she's got.
Is it fair to say that she's basically trying to overcome being canceled?
Sure. Right now, Tessa could retire, okay, and not wrestle anymore and make a living doing something.
Are you concerned on a personal level for your love as a fan of wrestling that Tessa may be treated with, it's not just what the fans chant at you. They can boo you and et cetera, but Tessa's being targeted for a particular thing that's quite controversial in this country. Are you concerned about that reaction live?
No.
Okay.
No.
Can you elaborate?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm assuming, and maybe I'm wrong, I'm assuming the fans will appreciate the talent that she does in the ring. Okay? And the one thing about the TWA going back 35 years, we had a match one time with Owen Hart against a wrestler from New Japan, Tayuka Iizuka. And at the end of the match, they both got a standing ovation. Nobody booed the Japanese wrestler. They did at the beginning. Okay? But they both wrestled to their eyes. It was amazing. And it's on video. You can see it on YouTube. They got a standing ovation. I want the people in Philadelphia at the TWA show to recognize the talent that Tessa Blanchard brings to the ring. And at the end of the night, I want to see some respect given. Keep in mind, she's a second and third generation wrestler. Okay, the girl's got something. She's got it going, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing her in action. I've seen her on TV. Okay, I've seen her in action when in her younger days when she wrestled for the ECWA, a local independent organization down our way. Now I'm going to see her in the ring working with Samantha Starr. It should be a great match. And at the end of the match, whatever the results are, I want to see the fans appreciate good talent.
So with this one and done, no doubt it will be super successful. Will Joel Goodhart give his word that this is truly one and done, no matter how successful the show is going to be?
Yes, it's one and done. I am finished. I'm over. It's done. I'm never going to. I'm not doing another show ever again. I'm like I said. I'm writing a book. The book is coming out May 3rd. I will go to some conventions and sell my book. I am not. Trust me when I tell you, I am not doing it. This is my last show. There's a couple things that we're doing the night of the show. We're doing a 10-bell salute to the 44 wrestlers that have passed away who worked for TWA. Secondly, we're going to have a second 10-bell salute at the end of the show. TWA is dead and gone after this show. And we're doing a 10-bell salute. The last thing of the match, the last thing of the show, we're done. So everybody has my word. That's it. Done. I'm not doing another show. And to be honest with you, now that I got involved in doing this show, had I known what I was going to run into, I wouldn't have done this show.
Okay. Wow. What the hell, man?
This show, we started this show back in May. It's going to take a whole year to put this show together. This business has changed dramatically since I did it 35 years ago. I would never do this again, ever.
Well, I'm going to hit you with a very tough question. I hope you're prepared. Did you see the movie The Wrestler?
Yes.
How did you like that movie?
I liked it. It was very real. But the best part of that picture was when they went into the school gyms and there was like 6 or 7 wrestlers. Each one's crippled. Each one's sitting behind a table trying to sell a picture. And they would pose for a picture. That's the way a lot of guys make their money today. Yeah. Okay. And these cons are huge. Look, down this way, Rob Feinstein did cons. It's unbelievable how many people he drew. Okay. I only wish our con will be as successful as his. It's ridiculous. John Arezzi used to do great stuff up in New York. You couldn't do a John Arezzi show up in New York today if you tried. First of all, every wrestler has an agent that wants 20% of the cut.
Well, yeah, it's a different world. But here's my question: do you know a guy named Evan Ginsberg?
Yes.
Here we go. Go.
So my question to you is this: if Evan Ginsberg wasn't the associate producer of The Wrestler, do you think it would have been as successful as it ended up being?
Oh boy.
Well, okay.
He's laughing.
How about if I say I'm not going to give you an answer to that one? Okay.
Make it good.
No, that one. No, the wrestler was realistic. Okay, but it also had the side family part of it. Yes. And to be a wrestler back in the day, you were a gypsy. You didn't have a home life. You were on the road 350 days a year.
Right.
Okay. You went from town to town. You found somebody who would cook them dinner and let them sleep on the floor, so you didn't have to buy a hotel room, and you didn't have to go to IHOP and buy a meal. Okay. And there are people who think that because they gave their house to a wrestler and cooked them dinner that they were in the wrestling business.
Right.
Okay.
This is true.
Well, Joel, thank you for that because you answered one of my questions. Without answering it, you answered it. There you go.
It's a work.
But
So
Joel, what about Mike? If I can though, what about though, like the people like what
wow.
Mike and I do? Okay, we've been told by experienced wrestlers that just because we're fans and we never took a bump in the ring, which I respect the hell out of. I really do. For God's sakes, I'm in the McDaniel family. I get it. Okay,
Yeah.
you know, what gives a wrestler the right to tell somebody like Michael or myself, who've been watching wrestling for a half a century, that we can't use the term green or we can't use the term work or shoot? Do you think that that's a little much? Because I do, and I do think that the internet is abused, like you said, but not this program. Everyone is
Yeah.
allowed to tell their side of the story. What's
Yeah,
your thoughts?
it's everything's going. It's all a matter of degree. I took maybe a half a dozen bumps. Okay, and my problem was, since I was the guy on the radio, they all knew me, so I couldn't. And so Abdul the Butcher one time beat the living hell out of me, kicked me. It's on video.
That's
One
unpleasant.
time there was a wrestler in the ECWA by the name of Napalm Bomb that almost killed me. And look, I don't take bumps. Come on, I'm 71 years old. That ain't happening. What I do realize is that in wrestling, you're either a promoter, you're a booker, you're a wrestler, you're a referee, you're a ring announcer. You are what you are, and you find your lane and you stay in the lane. Now, the only guy that gets out, Vince McMahon did it well. You know, he got the heat and all that. But for the most part, you find your lane and you stay in it. And to me, the wrestlers better respect the fans, because it's the fans that pay their salary.
Thank you.
Okay. And you know,
Thank
when you wrestle in a high school gym with 150 people there, and you work your ass off for $25, and today these wrestlers are lucky to get $25, and they're putting their body in harm's way. They're doing it because they want the reaction from the fans.
Right.
Well,
And Joel, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
The icing on the cake is that the wrestler who told us this is Bubba Ray Dudley, who I supported when he wrestled in such said and aforementioned high schools. I've watched him since his high school days, and he's basically telling me that I don't have the right to use wrestling terms. Mike doesn't have the right to use wrestling terms. I suppose Gordon Soley, who was never a professional wrestler, could not use wrestling terms. Could you imagine? To me, it's appalling.
See, you know what it is? There again, it all goes to degrees. Some people use the term because they're trying to pretend that they're wrestlers.
Bingo.
Okay, and then there's others that use the term because it's a term.
Right.
All right, and you know, think about this one. You can have a locker room with 25 guys back there, all built like brick shit houses, and you're going to call them boys. Where the fuck did they come up with that term? Okay, I mean, seriously, all right. And so you sit
back. Pull their own cavemen. Yeah,
well,
go
that's
on.
the whole point. See, you know, but that's where you learn the terminology of the business.
Right.
Okay. Look, twice I was special guest referees. I was exhausted. These referees are part of the show. Okay. When you have a regular match, you have 3 participants in the match. You got the 2 wrestlers and the referee. Okay. And now what bothers me, I swear to God, you're getting me off on a tangent here. What bothers me the most, what pisses me the fuck off is when you go to a local show and the ring announcer isn't wearing a tuxedo. Okay? He's wearing a suit. He's wearing a pair of pants that are so goddamn baggy, he looks like a piece of shit. And he's supposed to be he's supposed to be the first thing that the kids out there see. Okay? If I was a promoter and the ring announcer didn't wear a tuxedo, I'd throw his ass out.
Amen. Keep going. Don't stop. Don't stop there.
Hey, look, I used to wear a tuxedo every show, whether it was the Bar Wars shows, the high school gyms, the college gym. I wore a tuxedo. It was part of my shtick, my gimmick, whatever. You wore a tuxedo. I'll tell you what frustrates me. These wrestlers, they drive up in a car that's got one hubcap. They pull out, they get their luggage out. They're wearing pants that didn't fit them 12 years ago. Okay? But they're pretending that they're millionaires and they're making a fortune.
Oh, haven't you heard? You haven't heard? They're legends. No. What are you talking about?
No, that's it. The legend is a bum. I mean, it's just that's the kind of stuff, because the show starts when the people start driving up, and the wrestlers should be in it. First of all, when was the last time you ever went to a building and the heels are selling pictures? What the hell is that all about?
Yep. Okay. Well, ironically, when you left the business and you said you stayed completely away for 17 years, that's ironically around the time, maybe a little before, I'm sure, that the curtain was torn down in Madison Square Garden. You know the story. You know how Hall and Nash and Shawn and everybody, X-Pac, whatever, everybody's hugging and good guys and bad guys. There goes the end of kayfabe. Maybe because you didn't.
There is no Gorilla Monsoon. His license plate was kayfabe.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Kayfabe was big.
That was the most important aspect when we were kids.
Because that's what sold tickets. You had to make it real.
Right.
Okay. And I'm telling you, I remember.
Sold as a sport. Sold as a sport.
It is. Well, it's a sport when it's done right. It's sport. It's amazing. I always tell people they call it sports entertainment. Mm-hmm. Well, the last time I looked, it's not a sport and it's not entertaining.
Hey, Joel, I want to take a hard right on you. Did you ever meet Vince McMahon?
Oh,
yes.
Can you tell us about that?
I met Vince McMahon again for all of 10 seconds. I met Vince McMahon. I got invited, as Carmella did, when we had our store. The WWF, Hulk Hogan was having a birthday party in New York. Okay, and this is when Hogan was starting to really make it big. And we were invited because we sold some WWF merchandise in our store. So we were a distributor. So we got 2 tickets to go up. And I went up in New York. Carmella didn't go because she had the baby. I went up to New York, and I'm in there. I go into the party. Hulk Hogan, now just so you'll know, Hulk Hogan is 11 days older than me. Okay? So we basically had same. Anyway, I go up to Hogan. I introduced myself to him. He wouldn't know me from Adam. I introduced myself, and then standing next to Hulk Hogan was Vince McMahon. And Vince introduced himself to me more than he said, you're Joel Goodhart. I said, yes. He shook my hand. And that was the extent of it.
He was aware of you.
He knew us. He was not only was he aware of us, he knew what we were doing.
When you went to the show, I'm assuming you saw the live show, right? Was there a show involved at all that you?
No. This was just a party. Just a party.
Okay, understood. So it was a brief exchange, but Vince was clearly aware of you.
Yep. Oh, there was no question he was aware.
Any thoughts on what Vince McMahon has undergone recently? Any thoughts?
Again, I have my thoughts both pro and con. The reality is, if he did what everybody claims he did, he's a scoundrel and he should lose everything.
Once again, Vince has not managed to be arrested or put in jail. Any thoughts on that?
There's a lot of crooks that are. Go look in Washington. There's a lot of crooks that aren't in jail.
So, Joel, where can fans get tickets for the event? How can they get tickets for the event? When do they go on sale? Let's get this all down so people know.
The tickets are on sale now. You go online to the 2300arena.com, 2300arena.com. There's 2 sets of tickets. You have tickets for the WrestleCon, which will be from 12 to 3:30. And then there's the tickets to the show, which will start at 7:30. Doors open at 6 o'clock. And we're going to have 8 matches. Plus, we're going to have the 10-bell salute. We are also having a banner dropped. I know you've talked to Chubby Dudley before. He's the one that actually started the banner thing. There's going to be a banner dropped at that arena with 5 names on it. Larry Winters, the late Larry Winters, DC Drake, Johnny Hotbody, Tony Stetson, and Joel Goodhart. They decided that the 5 of us were the icons that started it all. So we're going to have a banner drop. in addition to the 8 matches. The matches are phenomenal. The WrestleCon is going to be phenomenal. If you like the old stuff, you come to the show. If you're a WWE fan, don't even waste your money. Okay? But if you want to see, I mean, I have a list here. Here's my matches, and here's the people at the WrestleCon. I mean, I can bore you to death with names and matches and whatever. Here's what I'll tell you. If you want, excuse me, you can go online. If you're on Facebook, we've got the TWA fan page. It's TWA Squared Circle Wrestling Radio. Type in Joel Goodhart. Type in Chubby Dudley. It all comes up. You'll see all the information there. But you go to 2300arena.com. Okay, you purchase your tickets. You can ask for roll call. You can print the tickets out, whatever. In fact, here's one better for you guys up in New York. When John Arezzi was in New York, John Arezzi used to have bus trips down to my shows. Okay, I used to have bus trips up to his conventions. Those of you in Long Island, why don't you put together a bus trip and come on down?
I'm in Florida.
Well, come on up. I got news for you. Wait. We have Rich Engling, who lives in Florida, who's one of our referees. He's flying in for the show. I've got Jimmy Giannetti. Jimmy Giannetti, who's one of our wrestlers, is coming in from Florida.
I'm losing excuses here, Mike. Go on.
That's it, man. So don't give me no shit that you live in Florida. I don't want to hear that crap.
Jimmy, I think we gotta go. I think we gotta go.
I've been buried. Nice.
So we'll be promoting this TWA show on all Monte The Pharaoh social media. Once I adjust some of these videos, I know we're live now, but when I cut the shorts, we'll be posting all that information on. Joel, I want to thank you for taking your time on a Thursday to join Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. I hope we took it easy on you. We decided we are going to take it easy on you.
I wanted you to take it tougher. That's okay. I can handle you all.
Oh, you didn't want the questions we were going to hit you with, brother. Too much respect. Too much respect for you. Okay. But seriously, we want to thank you for taking the time out. You are truly an icon in the sport. As two guys that do a show, it's I guess the way I could say it is, it's so impressive when you don't know something or you don't know enough and you learn about somebody. You're like, wow. And that's why I'll never claim to be a wrestling expert. Jimmy is a wrestling expert.
But I'm not. Stop it. You'd say that all the time.
I learned so much from guys like you and Chubby and all the other guys that we've had on. It's pretty amazing, the world of wrestling. And
you don't learn shit from Chubby. You don't learn shit from Chubby. Who are you kidding?
Chubby,
wait a minute. Hold on. Chubby taught me, if you're in Florida, use a spatula to clean it. In Tennessee, to use a spatula to get the snow off. Wait a minute. We got to run in. We got to run in, folks. We got to run in. It's Chubby.
How about that? How about
we got a Chubby running.
This asshole over here always talking shit about me.
This guy, let me tell you about Chubby, okay? He's not only a total pain in the ass, he is a hemorrhoid.
I've elevated. You guys took it way too easy on him, man.
No, we did. Chubby, I did. Because you know what? I got to be honest with you.
What are you talking, Mike? What were you supposed to do? Is there something I'm missing here?
No, we could look. Joel Goodhart is an icon, right? It's like I just was learning about Joel throughout the last few years, and to have the opportunity to have him come on the show was amazing. And Chubby, again, I didn't get enough to say to you. Your show last week was off the hook, dude. You were incredible. I got to give you a lot of credit.
I had so much fucking fun, guys. I really
did.
All right, I want you to realize, if I'm an icon, Chubby's a con.
There's no.
I am going to ask you guys both this though. We did have DC Drake on the show a long time ago. Jimmy, what, 4 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, it's getting there. Yeah.
Who was it? DC Drake and
please don't remind me of Damian Kane, will you?
Kane. But anyway, the one thing I'm going to ask both of you guys is this: I didn't realize how important DC Drake was to wrestling.
My God!
If you guys could share your thoughts on them on DC, that would be great.
All right, here's my thought. Number one, that's it. DC Drake started it all. DC Drake and again, keep in mind, you're only as good as the person you're wrestling. So him and Larry Winters, they ripped up the entire East Coast. The one thing that I figured out with Drake is by bringing him in and making him a permanent fixture on my shows. I took him maybe to the next level. But DC Drake was awesome. He was phenomenal. He was the star. He was the Hulk Hogan before Hulk Hogan. He was the man. And I'll tell you one thing: if you want, Chubby and I will get DC to do your show again before the May 3rd show.
That sounds good. Let's book it
up.
up.
DC, I'm telling you, he is the man. He lives in Massachusetts. He comes down to see me. The guy is number one. There is no 1B. He is number one. Everybody else is number two. That's
Mike,
my thoughts.
Am I remembering this correctly? Because wasn't that the show where Damian Kane was stuck in 1995, and like we regretted afterwards that we didn't get to talk to DC more because DC was just
Damian Kane would not come out of gimmick.
He wouldn't.
For us, we're not those type of guys. We don't like guys in gimmick. We want to talk about real life shit, and Damian just would not come out of it, and we were just like, dude, hang me now. Just end the show now. And DC couldn't get a word in.
And DC was so thoughtful too when he did get his words in. And I was like, we both spoke about it afterwards. Like, man, I wish I could have talked to him more.
All right. Goodhart. Wait a minute. Hold on. 1 second. Goodhart, I want honesty, and Chubby's going to hold you to it.
Yeah.
So I understood you didn't get into drugs. I get it. And I'm glad to hear it. How often were you getting laid, though?
Look at the grin on his face.
Well, let's put it this way.
Oh, here we go.
That was my drug. Okay.
You slut. Unbelievable.
Not getting laid was not. I'll tell you the best part of it. Anybody who wanted to get to Sting, they knew they had to go through me.
Scorpion Deathlock.
Oh yeah, this. Oh my God!
You were a fluffer. You were like a fluffer for Sting.
I was the middleman.
Nice.
You. Wow. So Sting was technically getting sloppy seconds.
Well, yeah, but the funny part was there were so many people. How do I say it nicely? The women.
Please don't.
Okay, no, the women that wanted to get to the wrestlers, either they had two ways to do it. They can go directly to the wrestler.
Right.
Okay, or they can go through a filter.
Sure. Process. Gotcha.
From the filter.
The filter, man. Jesus Christ. Chubby, you were going to say something before Pharaoh rudely cut you off. What were you going to say?
No, I was just about Drake. When we had a meeting at Joel's house a few months back, and Don showed up to the door with this real nice, gorgeous suit on, and we were like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like he was like the only respectable looking one there.
And he drove 5.5 hours to get to our dinner.
Yeah.
Wow. There is one thing I think you said, Joel, that is pretty important. I think once this wrestling shit gets in your blood, it's hard to get it out. It's like a drug in itself, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. That's why it always surprised me how many people got involved with drugs, because wrestling is a drug.
It is.
It just is. It was for me.
I had to do like when Joel left for his 17, 18 years, when I went out of business, I did the same thing. And I have to, because I get like the way I am now with Joel, I get nutso because I turned it off for almost 20 years and I didn't watch. And over the last couple of years, I slowly was getting drugged back in. And once I start watching again, I get, fucking nuts in the head. And now this nut job putting on a show and makes me the booker. Now I'm really out of control.
Well, I'm going to tell you, by the sounds of it, it's going to be successful. I know I'm going to be there. Hopefully I can get Pharaoh to fly up from Florida and we'll come down. I'm very excited for the show, and we'll be promoting the hell out of it. And both of you guys, nothing but gentlemen. We've had the luxury of meeting such incredible people like yourself, and then we've also ran into pieces of shit like Conan. But that, I digress.
I'll say one more thing with Pharaoh. If Pharaoh comes up, I want him to come up with his wife, because I want to meet the woman that was married to Wahoo McDaniel.
Okay.
Okay.
There you go.
And if
There
you
you
want to
And
drink,
Zach is now. First of all, Zach has a buzz. Zach has been here breaking stuff because he's such a big guy, just like his pop, that he's like trying to sit on stuff and it's breaking.
tell him to
But,
come on up. Tell him to come on up.
Why don't
He's
you
got-
have
he's-
Zach come on screen real quick, dude? I haven't even met the
Are
guy.
you ready for? Are you ready for? Are you sure you're ready for that?
Yeah, bring him on.
I don't
And
even know if I can. I don't even know if I can fit him back here.
And
One of a
Pharaoh, one
kind.
thing
One of a
to keep
kind,
in
baby.
mind.
Ladies and gentlemen, the son of Wahoo McDaniel, Zach
Your
McDaniel.
skinny ass over.
As usual,
Zach,
he's being
pleasure
he's
meeting
being
you.
his polite self to me, Michael. So here we go.
Now that's a Floridian right
Listen,
there,
you
man.
behave, all right?
All right.
You have to behave.
I will
It's one
say
of the
one
conditions.
thing.
Okay,
I'll say one thing. Zach,
Dad.
firstly, nice meeting you.
Hey, man,
The one
life's
thing
good.
I will tell you, when we do the 10 bell salute to the 44 wrestlers that worked for me at some point that's no longer, Wahoo is obviously on the list. So if you want, Zach, if you come on down, at least we're going to give recognition to your dad that
Come on-
night.
come on
Love to
up.
have you. Love to have you.
We'd have to come on up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're down. We're down. What's up, you guys? How are you?
What's going on, man? I see. I totally. When they told me this last week, Joel, I thought they were ripping the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
I really did. I did not think
No,
this was
in
real.
the flesh, dude. Jimmy's part of the family here. Pharaoh is Pharaoh McDaniel. What's up, y'all?
Zach, it's on my end. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, sir.
My best buddy, Michael Monty.
Jimmy has
What's
nothing
up,
but great
Monty?
things to
How are
say
you, bro?
about it. What's going on, man? So, anyway, before we cut this out, again, I want to thank you both for coming on. I will see you in a few months. I'll be at your event. Very excited to see it. And I'm only hoping the best. And on my own personal basis, I hope this isn't a one and done. I hope you are so successful.
Oh,
Oh,
that you do it again.
No. It's one and done.
He's
Swear
done.
to it.
He's done. Don't you pull a motley crew.
And
I don't
Jimmy,
wanna
I
hear
don't
that.
want it to be lost that Joel Goodhart took a shot at Evan Ginsberg.
Oh no.
That was
Not at all.
that was one of the best shots of all time. I will be
Yeah.
cutting onto his short and playing it a loop and a loop and a
Yeah.
loop.
Well, you know my feelings. Evan should have chapped knees and thank Mickey Rourke for being born. That's my take.
You
All right,
guys
what-
have this love affair with Conan. I can say this about Conan.
Yeah.
He was. I was never so stiffed and potatoed by a person in my life than by Conan.
Wait, are
Really?
you guys talking about like Conan? Like
Conan.
old-
Orderly, let me speak on this.
the wolf pack. Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't like this.
All right, so
He doesn't like us.
So when I was a child, Conan, that was my dude.
He's lying, Mike. He's fucking around. I'm telling you, I know him. Way to go, son.
All right. With that, Zach, if you don't
I
mind,
was a child before I really grew into everything that we know. Conan was that he had a good following. Let's be real.
well, Jimmy, I don't know how you're going to deal with that because
Well, I'll have to yell at him because I don't like,
go
Look,
fair.
I
You
get
got
it.
to.
He doesn't understand the insults that have been thrown our
I
way
get
by
it.
a guy.
I get it.
You know.
I get it now. But back in the day, hey man, a lot of kids like that dude. I guess. you
Hey,
know?
Zach, everybody
know.
makes mistakes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
listen,
I'll try to give him some consultations about it.
There-
later on.
there's
Yeah.
a-
with that, I'd like to end the show because I have to do work. Zach, if you don't mind, being that you're a special guest, I'd love you to
Talk to
send
me.
out Mr. Joel Goodhart, Chubby Dudley, and Monte the Pharaoh, if you don't mind, Zach.
You want me to sign off?
That's it,
Yeah,
sir.
that's what
Is that what that means?
That's
what that means.
I don't do this a lot, so.
That's what that means.
So,
Hey.
Chubby, hey, bro, we appreciate you. And
Back at you, man.
Mr. Goodhart, hey, you the man. And everybody else on the feed here, y'all come back and see us. We like y'all. Much love. Is that
See
good
ya.
enough? Was that okay?
That's a
Well
I don't
done.
know.
Guys, thank you.
you.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Take care.